Hey, what's going on, guys? How all you are doing? Welcome to the third episode on Learning React course series. So as you have watched the last video tutorial, all we have gone and covered is the components and what are actually React components, how we can use them efficiently, and why they are very important for like managing the application state and for making like briefly or flexible React applications and take full control over our user interface. So yeah, after explaining what is a component and how you can manage it and what is the render method and constructor and like this component will mount method events when it actually will start, today we're gonna talk about more briefly about the set state. So what actually the set state does, how we can manage our state or our like UI state, which is the React component state, like we show it, we disable it or hide it or change some kind of data and alter things on like specific type of event. So what we're going to do is just create like a couple of like, I don't know, an input. Then when we try to enter a text into that input, we change our text. So we display it right out of the box. So as you can see, we have a component in here. I'm calling it just header. You can call whatever you want in here, whatever is suitable for you, but I'm just using a header component over here. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and let me just call this like an H2 learning, for example, learning state managing. So management, okay, state management over here. And what I'm going to do is just create another dev. So I'm going to go through and create another dev and create an H3, and in that H3, what I'm going to say, my hobbit is and my hobbit as an yada yada yada. And what we're going to do is create an input, and that input, what we can do on that particular input is enter our hobbit, and this particular text over here is going to change immediately. So whenever we type in, or as soon as we type in, this text is going to be updated. So we're gonna actually implement that and see how this pretty much works. So I'm going to have like an input and with a placeholder of I don't know, enter your hobbit. So your hobbit, okay, and I'm gonna give it a class name. I'm using, by the way, Bootstrap over here just for making the style looks a little bit prettier. So I've gone under the index.html and added the link to a Bootstrap CDN. So just include the 4th version of Bootstrap over here. As you can see, you can like search for Bootstrap CDN and grab it over here. So after including that, I'm gonna just say form control, which is like an input class name for the from Bootstrap. So you can just style this a bit. And what I'm going to do over here is what we're actually going to do is add a new event listener. So whenever this change, so which means whenever we type under this input, we need to change this particular thing. So for now, if we Control S and go and open up this under the browser, so open in default browser. So we need here to open up in default browser. As you can see, we have learn state management, my hobbit as and my hobbit. So for just styling management, what I'm going to pretty much go ahead using, and one thing I haven't told you about is like, if you have noticed, I'm using class name and like instead of class. So when we usually declare an HTML element, we use the class attribute in order to give it whatever CSS classes or predefined CSS classes. But for React, what you tell it is the class name. So you change from class to class name. Why that? Because React doesn't know about the class. It tried to alter things and make it class name in order to like recognize it when parsing this string. So just make sure to put in like the class and do the class name attribute and put whatever classes between here like normally you do. So you change it from class to class name and you're good to go. Now I'm just gonna say this is like going to be a container, and pretty much yeah, this is it. And under here, I'm just gonna give it also a class name and mix it text center just to center this text. So yeah, so go back over here, as you can see, and yeah, we've got a little bit more better style over here. So what I want is when I type something over here, I need to change this text. So make it automatically get changed and print whatever we have a hobbit over here printed under this H3 element or under like this particular text or this particular container. So how we do that using the set state and React state. So under here, for each React component, it has a particular state object. This state object holds every single like variable that we need under our element or under our components. So this like could be any like usernames, like I don't know, messages, some kind of a counter that counts. If you have like a component, when you press a button, it adds one or counts how many presses you've done into this button and how many presses you've pressed to the button actually. And you can everything you need to keep updating, or everything is going to be updated, it needs to happen, or you need to put it into this state, so the state object. For this particular case, we're gonna put a text and it's just gonna be empty. So this text is gonna hold our whole bit as soon as we enter it, or we enter it under the the input over here. So all we're going to do is we just you can insert that, you can declare it, or no, this is like very optional for you, since we can use it both ways on JavaScript. This is no issue for us, but make sure to enter it in here or make it just an empty in order for you to make it easier to understand, or for any other developers, make it for them to like easier understand what actually you are doing over here. Now, how we check whenever we type in a text here using the onChange method. So as I've told you, to use events, we use them as an inline event. So let's say when you have a button and you want to click the button, we use the onClick event. It's an inline event. So you can't tell it like using JavaScript to reference that element and on using jQuery or something, onClick and stuff. No, React just uses it as like an inline argument, and here you pass it in the callback you want to assign, or you want to like run whenever this event has been triggered. So yeah, on the onChange, what we want is to change that. So let me just go back or go under our components class and add a new method, and this method is going to handle input change, for example. And yeah, it's going to be a very simple method, and under each component or each like elements on each event, what it's going to, when it runs this one, it's gonna pass in automatically by JavaScript, it's gonna pass in an event handler. So it's gonna pass in an object in here, gonna hold a bunch of informations about our elements, the press elements, or the target element that we are actually working on the particular event, or when the particular event has happened or has triggered. Now on change, how we tell it using this .handle event input.change, and we need to bind this. So some of you ask why we bind this, and that particularly because this event is gonna call this callback over here. So let me just this callback over here, the handle.change, is not going to be called under this context, so the context of our class. So what it does, when this event has been triggered, it's just gonna go ahead and register, of course, register the handle input, and whenever the event happens, it's just gonna call the handle input change. But it doesn't know about the existence of this class. So what we need is to bind this context, which means to bind the header class context into it. So whenever we use this under this method over here, it does know this here refers to whom, which class it refers to. Unless if you don't do that, it's just gonna give you a really weird error. So make sure just to do it over here, or just to bind this in order to make everything works for you. Now, what we actually need to do is to reference that. So let me just go ahead and console.log and to see actually what we have entered. So event.target, and the target represent the target elements that this event is running on. In this case is the input. So if you have put this event under an H3, is going to be the H3 itself, and so on and so forth. You can learn more about that under the native JavaScript API, and the target, and we need to grab in the value. Now just close this, Control S for saving. We go back into our let me just Control S or refresh the page and open up the developer tools for seeing what actually going to be printed out into the console. So here we print something, and as you can see, each time I print, for example, my Hobbit, it changes immediately. So whenever we type a character, it changes that and add this character. So it happens whenever a change is like happened into this array, or a new character has been assigned into the input. I mean, not array. So yeah, this is how it works. So what we need is to keep track of this text, then update this particular one. So some of you might think we can just access this element and change it, but it won't happen that way. What we need is to tell React to change this one, this variable over here, and when it changes this variable over here, it needs to re-render everything. So we need to tell two things: to change this particular text over the h3 element and re-render the component. Why re-rendering the component? To tell it to take or to make the changes apply. So you apply the changes into the actual DOM. So React makes this super simple for us by adding a new method into each component. So since we are extending from the React components, the base components class, what we can use is the set class or set state method. What it does, this one, is just going to change our state. So what we're going to tell it is to just pass in an object. It's actually going to know which are the state object automatically. So you must use this dot state, or you must call your state variable state, because it just going to automatically looks for the state naming convention or the name of the state. And here you're passing in the new object you want to run. So in this particular case, we're going to just put text and you put in the new text. So you access target the value and you are good to go. So maybe you have like another variable in here. For example, it's called counter and it's just like 0. So like some of you might ask, do we really need to call the other variable and set it to 0 again? Not really. So it's just going to take you just need to pass in the variable you enter the objects in here, the attributes that you want to change only. So let's say you have 100 of attributes into this state and you only need to change the text. So you only need to pass in the new text that has been, or you need to alter, you need to change over here. Do not care about the other things that you don't need to change at all. React is going to do the rest of the job for you. Now set the state, it's just going to set the text into the e.target.value and we are good to go. So here, let me just get rid of this counter over here, and you're just going to set the state. And in order to let this happen, what we can do is need to reference that. So we need to call this dot state. So this dot state dot text. So in order to tell it to render something into things, you need to use curly braces and put whatever variable in here. So this is how JSX works in the React. So we put this state.text, and we need, whenever we alter or change the text when setting the state, this is going to be changed automatically by React, and we're gonna just update everything. And one another notice I need to mention before going and seeing what's actually going to change is the set state, or this .set state method is going to automatically tell React to re-render the whole component. So we're gonna just apply the changes that we have done over here. So you're gonna apply the changes to the DOM actually. So Control S for saving and go back over here, refresh everything. And here let's try, as you can see, we've got immediately nothing because here we're just passing in a no like attributes. What we can do is, so enter your Hobbit, for example. So Control S again in order to show that at the beginning. So now let's try my Hobbit, and as you can see, it changes immediately whenever we type in a new character and so on and so forth, as, I don't know, programming or something like this. And as you can see, the text changes immediately and gets updated automatically by itself. And that using only the set state method, it's gonna do the job for us perfectly. Now let's go see when we like I don't know, empty things, it's just gonna go. What we can do in here is check if an empty or no. So it's a very quick hack around that. So what we can actually do is go ahead and add an if statement and say if this .state.text equals an empty text, then what you can do is this set state of text, and you put in an empty, or you put in enter your Hobbit. I can't type. Okay. And else you can enter the newly inserted text. So in this particular case, it's going to be e.target.value, and this pretty much is going to work pretty much fine. So I don't mean this .state.text. What I mean is I'm a little bit confused over here. So let me just, I don't know, change that. So I need to check into this .target.value if it equals to null, which means if it is an empty thing. So we just enter your hobbit and stuff like this. So Control S again, go back, refresh, and enter your hobbit. So your hobbit, it changes. So whenever now we delete everything, as you can see, we get enter your hobbit reverted back to us. So automatically, and this is like pretty much how state management works. It's very, very simple and very, very basic. Now, another thing I want to mention before the end of this video tutorial is that you can probably, let me just add another div, and under that div, I'm gonna add, I don't know, like about an h2 of a counter. So how we can add the counter or something, it's gonna be pretty much the same thing, but I just want to add it for more demonstrating purposes. So I will add a counter variable until this is state. I'm just going to tell it 0, and each time we press a button that I'm just going to like create right now. So whenever we type this or press this button, we're just going to increment this counter in here. So we press the button, we +1 into the counter, so which means counter ++. Now let me just go and class name equals, I'm just going to use btn. So I'm using Bootstrap, by the way, in here. So btn success and btn dash, so just btn success and you're good to go. So I don't know, you can increment, you can call increment ++, and here we can use this .state.counter, and make sure to, whenever you need to print in any variable exists in your class context, you can put it between curly braces, as you can see in here, and then you print whatever, or you put whatever variable name in order to get it printed between the HTML elements you want to get printed on. So yeah, this is like a basic how it works. Now we need to add in an event, or we need to add in the onClick event handler. So you just type in the onClick, the event name. Make sure to use the onClick as a camel case. So it starts with the lowercase and then an uppercase for the next sentence or for the next word, which is the click. Now here you can use, as you can see here, we have used like a predefined handlers under our class, like the class context that we have just predefined. Then just give it this .handle change, it's just gonna work fine. Here what we can do is declare an inline callback, so it's gonna just run whenever this on click happens, or the actually on click event. So what we can call this is just very basic, using the ESX syntax, or you can use a function in here, pretty much the same function, it's just gonna work fine, but I'm gonna use ESX syntax, so it's just gonna run immediately with no problems. So on the click, what we're gonna do is just increment the counter. So for that, we're gonna also have an event over here, so you can pass in an event for now, but for us, we don't need it anyway. And what we need is to set the state. So we need to access the counter, then +1 to that counter. So what we can do is this .set state, and under this state, as you can remember, we need to pass in the new state objects that we need to change. But in this particular case, what we need to do is counter +1. Which means that we need to know about the previous state of the counter. So let's say that we have counter equals 0, so we need to get the previous counter +1 in order to get the counter equals 1, and so on and so forth. So how we can do that? React also provides us with a really, like with another expression, or with another definition of this state that you can pass in on a callback rather than an object over there. So this callback, what it holds is the previous state. So the previous state as the arguments of the callback, then you pass it in the callback. So under this callback, you put in a parentheses, and under the parentheses, you put in the objects. So the new object or the new state object that you want to enter. So make sure this is like the previous state under the set state callback. So we're just going to take a callback, as you can see in here. I'm putting it into callback, and under this callback, I'm putting a previous state and argument. So React is going to automatically pass us the previous state. So we can use it to increment or to do whatever things that we need to do. And here the new object. So we can say counter equals previous state dot counter. So make sure, or like always remember that here it is pretty much the same state object in here. So it does have a counter attribute or a counter variable that we can access. So we say counter, and what we can say is +1. So each time we set the counter into the previous state's counter +1, and this is how we tell it to work. So you can use the previous state, or you can use the same procedure that we have used like up here with no callback or something. Or you can use the previous state or the previous definition with no callbacks, only an object that you can pass into the set state method. So as you can see, this is how it actually works. Now Control S for saving. We go back and we refresh our things. Refresh the page. As you can see, we get 0. Now increments 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on and so forth. As you can see, it works each time we get a previous state counter, then +1, and so on and so forth each time. So yeah, this is how pretty much it works. This is the two definitions of the set state with a callback or with an object. So both of them has the the same, or actually, the same object that you need to pass in, but what the difference, one has the previous state as a callback, and the other one only the object and stuff like this. So you can use each one in a different situations, like dependently with no problems. So in whatever situations you need, you can use whatever set state definition. So thank you guys for watching. That was it for this set state. As you can see, that how we can manage states and how we alter between things and variables and all this kind of things using the set state method from React, and that has been extended from the React based components. And thank you guys for watching again. I really do hope you enjoy. If you have problems, issues, if things you wanna ask me about, the comments below, I'll be very happy to answer your questions. Yeah, as I've said, or I will say, I will catch you in the next video tutorial.